Hello, everyone. This is Rob. How are you doing? So, I'm just finished up the two buyer's guides, one for monitors, one for computers, and now a lot of people have a good idea of what they want, how they're going to hook it up to a monitor, and are about ready to go down the path of purchasing their machine, their computer. So, there's a lot of things that people ask, what am I going to do here now? I now know what I need. Where do I go? So, there's a couple different options. Uh, I always used to pre-build. I always used to build my machines, but that's not necessarily good for everyone. Um, there is what is known as the build a PC kind of snob attitude. Oh, why are you going to go and buy a pre-built? It's much better to build yourself. It's cheaper. It's you're going to get better equipment. Yeah, you're going to get better equipment, but it is not necessarily cheaper anymore. A matter of fact, there's some really, really good boutique system integrators out there, as well as larger volume system integrators out there that do a pretty darn good job in getting you some really, really good value for your money. So that old adage of building your own machine is the best way to go because it's cheaper is just simply not true anymore. I guess competition is kind of really, really working its magic right now, and those people are using economies of scale that we just don't have as people as individuals to try to get our equipment at reasonable prices in and build them together, put them together ourselves. So it's not necessarily the case anymore. I'm going to show you a couple examples of a couple of systems that I was looking at and saying, wow, this system integrator's price is pretty darn good, and it might be worth my while to look at them. And they're going to kind of range in the I guess the quality level. So I picked two very well-known system integrators that are known to make decent machines or excellent machines. I'm not going to pick one that kind of has some reputation of not putting good systems together, that they don't work right out of the box or anything along those lines, that has some kind of negative reviews toward them. Now, again, you're going to have to take this for what it's worth, right? There's a lot of situations where people have a bias toward a certain name brand versus another. And so if you have that bias, please just put that bias aside and kind of look at this as an exercise to see where value might be, and we will go from there. So I'm on my computer right now, and I'm just trying to figure out, all right, I know what I want. I have an idea. I want to do something that has 8 cores, and I'm a gamer, and I want to have some longevity in my system, something that I can feel that will work for a good, 3 years, 3+ years or somewhere around that range, playing the top type of games that I like to play. I like to play them at 2K resolution, so I want to have something that can play games, at good graphics quality settings at 1440p, and that kind of gives me an idea of where I want to be, CPU wise and graphics card wise. I also think that I want to maybe do a little bit of streaming, so I want to make sure that I have something that has a decent amount of threads and cores for me to do that. And I don't necessarily need an integrated graphics card at all, so because I'm going to have my own dedicated graphics card, so those type of things are not very important to me. I want to have some decent storage, but I am also willing to not necessarily, if I go down the system integrator route, I'm not willing to pay too much for that storage for those upgrades that they might charge from their base model. So because I feel confident that I can probably get in there and add that extra storage or do those type of things. But I'm going to make some decisions. If it's going to take me some time to kind of change something out, I might opt to go to the next level up because who wants to change out a primary hard drive, because then you got to rebuild the whole system, and that's time and effort, and I don't want to deal with that anymore, right? I don't need to spend 2 hours in front of my system just rebuilding it, just to swap out a part that I could have easily popped in for a $20 surcharge, right? My time is worth some money. So I will make those type of decisions too when I try to decide if I'm going to go with a pre-built versus building myself. When I build myself, I know I am going to be doing that initial building of the machine, so I get what I want right then and there, and then I only do it once, right? Rather than having a machine delivered to me, has everything working fine, and now I'm pulling out something that's going to basically, need me to kind of start from the ground up and rebuilding the operating system again. So let's kind of think about that. So one of those areas that I like to go to when I'm trying to spec out a machine is a site called PC it's called PC Part Picker, and it's a really nice site. They give you different tools. You can look at some building guides. They got some completed builds people make public. It's a really great resource if you're kind of just going down the route of trying to put together a system that you think will work good for you based upon the buyer's guide that I already made. So there is an area here where you can, of course, register. I like registering because you can then have saved pieces, but we save part lists for things that you're thinking about doing. But let's just kind of go right into the system builder. It might actually load something up here that I've already kind of configured, but we will kind of just clear this out and just go from there. I'll just start clearing some of my workout that I've been playing around with before, and we'll just keep on going here now. This is the first time I'm actually doing a screen capture on this older laptop. As I said, I'm kind of got rid of my really nice laptop, and I'm waiting for a machine to kind of come in. I decided to go with one of those pre-builts because I found something that had a really good value, and my time is worth some money to me, and I don't necessarily want to deal with building my machine again and me being tech support for it during that period of time. So I also don't really build machines anymore for like friends or family because, again, I don't want to be tech support for people. Okay, so now we have a nice clean system, area here in PC Part Picker. So one of the first things you're going to do, as I was talking about in my computer buying guide, is knowing what CPU you want. You can choose your CPU. You can choose the cooling solution that you want for your CPU, whether it be air cooled or water cooled. There's many different options out there. Your motherboard, the nice thing about PC Part Picker, they won't let you choose too many things that are incompatible with each other. So once you choose a CPU, they'll filter the motherboards for you so that motherboards that are compatible for that CPU will be available. Memory, storage, video cards, cases, power supply, optical drives. You really don't need these anymore. Most software people download nowadays because our internet's getting faster and faster, and people are not loading up software through disk anymore. Operating system. A lot of people configure systems on PC Part Picker and don't put an operating system in there. If you're looking at some of the builds and the prices that people show with builds, you'll see a lot of times that software, the operating system area, is not there. So the prices can seem pretty darn low. And you're like, well, how's that so low? No, it's because they didn't put an operating system on their machine. So operating systems cost about $100 from Microsoft. So there's a cost there. Just be careful and make sure you always configure. If you're trying to compare building yourself versus a pre-built, make sure you always add an operating system in, because you're going to get an operating system with your pre-built. Software usually don't have to worry about. Monitors, we kind of discussed a buyer's guide, but we won't put a monitor in this time. We're just buying a PC right now. External storage, again, not really needed for this example. Laptops, not really needed. Now, some places that you would buy a pre-built from, they do have some additional case fans that you might want to kind of throw into your build here, so that you can have more RGB and stuff like that, better airflow through your case. So that's something that you might have to worry about. Networking cards, you might need to add a wireless network adapter when you're building, compared to something that's coming from a system integrator. They might have a wireless network adapter already installed, but you didn't choose a motherboard that has a wireless network um, on board with the motherboard, and you might need an extra card for that in order to get that to work for you if you need a wireless connection. And we also leave the keyboards, mice, speakers, and headphones away, because if a system integrator is going to include a keyboard and a mouse, it's probably the cheapest ones they can find, not necessarily something that you would want to keep and use on a day-to-day basis. Now, some people are perfectly happy with the keyboard and mice that come with system integrators or pre-built machines. Me personally, I'm not. So once you get used to a good mouse and a good keyboard, you usually look at those things that come from those system integrators and system builders and just kind of say, well, I'll just kind of put it into my extra keyboard and mice pile in case my mouse and keyboard decides to die, and I have one that I could just pull from in case, until I get a new mouse or keyboard to kind of replace my good one. So that's basically it. So you will go through this, and you would choose the CPU that you were thinking about, and it has really great options to kind of really narrow down your choices here. So if you know you are going to be dealing with either an AMD chip because you want to have that performance to cost ratio on the number of cores, or you know you want to build an Intel system because you really want those higher clock frequencies for your games, you can definitely filter from there. You can also then filter from your core count. You can say, I want something that has 8 cores, or I'm okay with 6 cores. Those are the type of things you can filter here with. There's some other things here that you can filter. I want to have at least something going at 3 gigahertz, right? You can do that. A lot of times the power consumption of a chip, a lot of people don't care about. If you have an idea of a series of chip that you want, you can filter here. But again, if you're just trying to get ideas of pricing, you might not filter by series at all. So you do also have the core family. Now, as you get more and more tech savvy, you'll start to understand these names. These are all the names that Intel has used for their generation of chips. Oh, this is a Coffee Lake chip. Oh, this is a Kaby Lake chip. It's just, you get used to this as you're more and more involved in technology and with the names that these families of chips become part of. And that's usually the name that the manufacturer gave during its design phase for the chip. So, but other than that, you might have decisions here that if you want to have integrated graphics on your card and what kind of integrated graphics level you want. Some of the best integrated graphics chips are on the AMD chips, but again, you have all those choices here. And you can do your filtering and make a decision based upon either price or clock speeds and boost clock speeds. If it has integrated graphics on there or not, the core counts, you can make decisions saying, okay, this looks like it's going to do for me what I want to do, and this looks like a great price, and you can add it to your build that you're kind of doing from there. As I said, motherboards can get really complicated. I'm not going to necessarily go in depth with that, but there's things called chipsets, and different chipsets give you different features on the motherboard. It's really an enthusiast type of area where a lot of your tweaking occurs on the BIOS. I'll probably make a video about how to build a system with PC Part Picker, but that's really not what this video is about. This is more along the line of, I know what I want, I have a good idea, I already filled this out for what I want, and now I'm trying to decide if I want to build it myself or if I want to go to a system integrator. So let us pretend that I found I'm going to build an AMD chip PC, and I want to and this is what I have, and I called it my cheapo 3700X build. So as a gamer, I know that I want to have something that has a nice amount of cores and a nice amount of threads, so I decided on the AMD processor because I'm going to be streaming at the same time. I want some, I don't want to do air cooling. I want to kind of play around a little bit with some liquid cooling, and then everything else I said, you know what, I'm going to just go for the cheapest piece available to finish off the build outside of my video card. I know I want the 2080 Super video card because of me playing on 1440p, and I want to have the best frame rates for that to match with my 144 hertz gaming monitor. So if I can get as close to 144 frames per second at 1440p, that will be great. And the 2080 Super is a really good card for that. And it's a pricey card. As a matter of fact, it's almost 50% of the build cost, but it is a great card for what I want to do, right? And it's and it works well, and I feel I got a great CPU. Now as I said, I could have made much better decisions on my motherboards and stuff like that to kind of give me more tweaking, but I don't want to tweak. I'm saying to myself, I just want to play games and I just want to stream with it. I just want a nice stable system that will work well. And I came up with a price of $1,500 for that, and that's pretty much the cheapest way you can build this system as of today, which is July 6th to 2020, for something that I feel is a good streaming gaming system for what I want to do. It's the absolute cheapest thing I can build. Now, each one of these has their own warranty. Each one of these has their own distributor at these prices. So I'll be buying it from 3 or 4 different vendors. I'll be buying it from, and then I'll have many different warranties, from one from AMD, one from Coolmaster, one from Asus ROX, one from G-Skill, one from NVIDIA, one from Cougar, one from Thermal. So literally I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different vendors of parts that I'll have 9 different warranties for. So which is okay. You're fully covered, right, if something goes wrong with them for whatever period of time that they have, but you have to be the tech support to troubleshoot which one of these components might have gone wrong when something kind of just falls off the cliff, and then rip that piece out, send it to the manufacturer, get your RMA, wait for it to come back, put it back in, and go from there. God forbid if it's like your storage unit, because then your whole OS is on there, and now you're sending off you might have to even rebuild your system when that comes in after that is fixed. So these are a little bit of some pitfalls that you have to deal with if you build yourself. Nothing wrong with it. It's matter of fact, it's kind of fun to kind of diagnose and do those type of things. I enjoy it. Some people don't. So you have to kind of take that for what you will. Now, if I was going to say, all right, $1,500, build it myself. All right. Well, let me see what some vendors out there that I know that make Ryzen chips pre-built for. And I would say, I want to go with someone that I trust, somebody that I know builds good systems. And usually when I think in those terms, there's 2 manufacturers that come to my mind. Now, this is my bias. You might have your own biases for this. You can choose your own companies that you feel comfortable with, or you can just kind of search around and then do some research on their tech support and make a decision from there, if they have a system that's similar to what you're looking for. But the 2 ones that I usually initially go toward is Digital Storm. They're a boutique system builder, system integrator, and Alienware. Now, Alienware used to be a more boutique system builder, but then Dell purchased them, so they become more mainstream, consumer level. They don't have as much high-end pieces in their system anymore, and they are so they're more trying to get out as many systems as possible. They have beautiful design features and some really good looking pieces of equipment, but the guts are not what they used to be, but they're still very sufficient. The guts usually work very well. You might be limited more about what their motherboards can do versus something like if you purchase from a Digital Storm that uses more of the pieces that they can get right off the shelf and that normal consumers buy. So if you want to kind of stay closer to the pre-built paradigm but have someone build it for you, Digital Storm is a great choice. If you're okay with a system integrator that has manufacturers build their own motherboards for them, and you kind of might be limited in the amount of tweaking that you can do, then Alienware is another good option. They'll put good systems together for you, and they will have good tech support. So I'm going to take a look at Alienware right now to kind of say, all right, if I want to build this type of thing out with Alienware, well, what's going to cost me, right? So I actually already did that over here. As you can see, we have an Alienware system. Now, you're going to see a coupon code here that I used. Anybody can get this coupon code. It's just to sign up with Dell to their email notifications and alerts, and you'll get a 10% coupon off for your next purchase. And so in this case, that coupon was worth $150. It's pretty darn good. A lot of times Dell, you can stack coupons. I also stacked a free shipping coupon onto there. And this is also their cyber event. So there was additional savings on here. So I kind of spec'd out a system that was pretty much identical to that one. This one actually has a little bit more because we do have a Wi-Fi on board. The other one doesn't. So that might add another $50 to my PC part picker. And so I can build this device here for about $15.50 if I was to add a Wi-Fi card here. But Dell is selling this Alienware here for $14.99. Holy crud. I'm getting pretty much the same system, right? The same speed memory, the same size hard drive, the liquid cooling, same size power supply. I'm getting a Wi-Fi. I got the thrown-in keyboard and mouse, and it's $50 less, and I now have a single point of support, and they do come to my house in case something breaks. That's a pretty good value proposition, and you might want to think about this instead of building yourself. Now, as I said, with Alienware, you're going to be giving up some of your flexibility in versus building your own. As I said, the motherboard could not have as much ability to tweak and control your system. And people might call it a low cost motherboard. It is. I'm not going to say it's not. But again, I chose in my cheapo build the cheapest motherboard I can find that I know is the same chipset that's on this one. So again, I'm kind of cheaping out on my parts as well. So I'm not sure how much more benefit I'm going to get with the motherboard I chose here versus the motherboard that's in the Alienware. Now, Alienware might tie down some of the features so that people don't get themselves into trouble, and because they're providing support for a year or maybe more if you up your service with them. But that's what you're kind of getting. They are taking on the responsibility of tech support, so they want to kind of limit your ability to kind of make problems for yourself. So you're giving up that freedom in order to kind of go with these type of systems. And I'm not going to argue which one's way is better or which one's worse. You're going to have to make that decision yourself. But pure dollar-wise, to pretty much exactly the same performance and the added value of getting the tech support from Alienware and having a single point for my warranty for my equipment versus 9, there's a value there. So you would have to make the decision if that's something that's good for you. As I said, I did apply this coupon code. Anybody can get it. You guys can use this one if you want. I'm not purchasing anything from Dell or Alienware in the very near future, but if you're going to use it, please make sure you're using it for a good savings instead of like $9 on a keyboard. I would prefer someone who can use it to get a really good savings. Now, if someone did use it and it's no longer available, as I said, you could just sign up an email for their email notifications, and you will get that same discount as well if you were to choose that. Just so you know, you can, as I said, they have really good savings. These are all the savings that were kind of plopped on. We have the right now the I call it Christmas in July, but it's they call it the Cyber Savings event right now. So it's their Cyber Savings event that happens in July versus during Black Friday. So here we go. It's $150 right off the top from there. You sign up for the email notification, you automatically become a member. You get 2% off from there. This is the coupon code that I was talking about right there for this $770. I like using Honey or Rakuten or Retail Me Not. Now that I have my coupons applied, right, from Honey or from myself, I can now just switch to Rakuten here and just kind of activate some cash back from them. Look at that. I'm going to now have a check coming back from Rakuten from purchasing from them. So sometimes this varies with Dell between 1% and 2%. Sometimes I even see 3%. So again, that's a good way to have even more money come back to you for purchasing a pre-built, right? So I have this. If you have a Dell preferred account, one of the nice things is if you do, you can get up to 6% of what you spent back in Dell rewards. So I would get, in essence, from here, let's just do some quick math. It's for 10%, it's $150. 5% would be $75. So it'll be about, somewhere about, 68 bucks worth of Dell rewards. And the Dell rewards are great, right? Because I can take that $68 and buy myself a nice new headset. Or a new keyboard or a new mouse or throw that money toward a monitor and lower the price of a monitor cost that you want. So there's a lot of advantage, like I got 2% or 1% back from Rakuten. I got another $70 from Dell rewards. So now I got $80 that I didn't have before that I can now spend on the monitor. And the monitor was $300. And now the real cost to me, the monitor was $200 just because I purchased from Dell Alienware to get a machine that is something that I'm kind of looking for. So that's a great thing, right? So that's kind of an idea of going to a pre-built versus something that I'm talking about now. I said, okay, well, let's see what Digital Storm has, right? I can go to Digital Storm. This is one of those things that they have. If you go to Digital Storm, they're a great manufacturer. They have some of the most beautiful systems in the world. They also have some really, really, really high-end systems. You can spend $10,000 on a system here at Digital Storm. But they do have the ability to make that they have some pre-builts, and those are really, really good machines for the price. And the pre-builts are in their links area. As you can see, it's their best seller because it's their pre-builts, and we can go into there and see what they got going on in their pre-builts today. And we will, let the things load up from them. As I said, I'm kind of working on a slower laptop today because I'm waiting for my machine to come through, and it's amazing to see the difference when I'm videotaping at the same time. As I said, it's a beautiful machine. You can even get some of these systems with hard-lined water cooling. They do a really, really great job. Now, what you get for their pre-builts, it's not going to look like that. It's not. It's just kind of giving you an idea of what you can do with their systems. But it also gives you an idea that these are enthusiasts that are building your machine for you. Custom orders start at a higher price point. Oh, look, the best sellers. Get the most bang for your buck. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Let's see what the configurations are. Oh, okay, they're doing Intels today. Cool. So as a gamer, this works for me, right? I'm okay with an Intel. It's not too bad. Oh, it's the i9. It might take a little bit of a hit for streaming because these, these ninth generation chips, not an i9, it's an i7, but it's a ninth generation chip. You can always tell the generation of your chip with Intel by the first digit of the. No, I don't need to worry with you guys right now. The first digit of their CPU. Their CPU is this is a ninth generation chip. The 10th generation chips will start with 10700 or especially for the i7s. And so this I can tell right away. Oh, it's a ninth generation chip. Ninth generation chips only have one thread per core, but it's an i7, so I know it's an 8 core. So I got 8 threads, 8 cores. It's not too bad. It might be sufficient for streaming. Not as good as the AMD chip, but that's a darn good price. Especially since I know how much these things go for. I'm kind of sacrificing a little bit on my graphics card, the 2070 Super, but the difference between the 2070 Super and the 2080 Super for 1440p gaming is about somewhere around between 15 to 18% more powerful is the 2080 Super versus the 2070 Super. So if I was going to be running a game on the 2080 Super and it was going to give me 120 frames per second, I might get about 100 frames per second on this card versus the other one. So, but I might pick up some more frames because I'm running on an Intel chip because of the higher frequency. So I probably won't lose the full 20 frames. I might, get a little bit more of a bump from the CPU with my frames per second. So in general, it'll be very hard perception-wise to know the difference between 10 to 15 frames per second when you're receiving about 120 to 120 frames. Your eye will have a very difficult time perceiving that difference in power, but it's still there. So, but still, it's a darn good price for that price point, and it's coming from these guys at Digital Storm. It seems like a really good deal. Let's look into this a little bit further, and then you kind of take a look at what you get for the price. It gives you even more information when you go into their system configurator. Now, because this is a pre-built, you're not going to get any real configuration to do here. But it will give you an idea of what's being placed in here. You're seeing that you're going to get the link system with the tempered glass side, which is really nice. The Lynx boxes are beautiful boxes. They have great airflow coming in, going out through the top. They're just a really well-made case. And here's the system that we're talking about. Now, the interesting thing, this is an F chip. The reason why they're giving us an F chip is because we're going to have our own graphics card. We don't need an integrated graphics card in the CPU. So that's that's fine. I don't need to have just a regular i7-9700. I have a graphics card. So why do I need the integrated graphics card? It's no big deal to me. It is not a K chip, so that it's not going to be operating at the higher boost clock speeds, but and it also has a lower base clock speed. But the nice thing is I'm buying this from Digital Storm, and they usually tweak my CPU to always be at boost. We'll probably see that a little bit down below. So 4.7 versus 4.9. I'm not giving up much going to the F chip instead of the K chip, and I'm have a good price point, so I'm okay with that. As you can see, the motherboard, they're telling you right now that this is the motherboard that's the manufacturers that they're going to use. You can do some more information. It might tell you a little bit about the chipset that they're using. Let's take a look here. CPU type, chipset. Oh yeah, look, they're using the H310, so it's a lower end motherboard versus some of the other ones there. You can see right here, this chipset only usually has slots for 2 DIMMs, for 2 sticks of RAM instead of 4. So they are trying to save some money there. That's okay. Usually it could take up to only 32 gigabytes of RAM in those type of systems versus 64. So it's kind of limiting my upgrade choices. But right now 16 is more than sufficient for 90%, 99.9% of people. 32 is kind of, people might put that in there to kind of feel that they're future proofing. I'm starting to see games where their recommended memory is 60 gigs. So if you kind of think about it, they're starting to come out now with recommendations of 16 gigs. Then a few years down the road, eventually you're going to see starting things to say 24 or 32 or those type of things. So if you're thinking about future proofing, 16 gigs is I think it's still going to be fine for a long time, 5 years or so. But I don't think it's going to stay there. It's everything's going to increase as time goes on, as software makes more demands upon the systems that we're using. So it's a decent power supply for what we're putting in there. It's giving me enough headroom to, like, if I want to still stay in the, if I want to go up to the 2080s in the future, 2080 TIs might be kind of getting close to that number, but power supplies are easy to upgrade, especially in these chassis from Digital Storm. Um, this is the storage that they're putting in there. They're giving me a 500 gigabyte device, and NVMe, so it's one of the faster ones. Oh, look, it's Western Digital, and we even know the series blue, so we can even know exactly what kind of part that they're putting in there. Here we're putting in a Seagate 2 terabyte device, or Toshiba. These are both well known devices. They are more than sufficient as a data storage, and it's a nice thing to have that secondary data storage in there. Here's a graphics card that we talked about. We're just going to use sound off the motherboard, it looks like. Here we are doing some water cooling from that they built themselves. It looks almost like I'm not the manufacturer. They probably go to some manufacturer to get them built specifically and branded for them. It could be like a Cool Master is my guess, or somewhere along those lines, and it's just rebranded to them. They do a great job in their cable management. They take attention to detail. Oh, they're also giving me some RGB lighting in there too for free. Well, not for free, but included in the price. Oh, and some of their nice RGB fans. Pretty nice. And here's what I was talking about before. They're going to do the CPU boost right in the overclocking factory for them, and they're giving me an operating system. Of course, as I said, always make sure that we're including operating systems in our own PC part picker to kind of compare prices. A recovery tool, USB device that you can keep nearby in case anything happens, and then you have all the other things that you can kind of fill in there. Here's our warranty. It's a 3-year labor and a 1-year parts replacement. Pretty standard in the industry for those kind of people. Lifetime tech support, which is really nice. You can always call in. They will always help you out. You might have to pay for the parts. You might have to pay for the labor after you're out of this period, but they are there for you all the time. Lifetime upgrades, free upgrades for component upgrades, purchases directly from them. So, you can call them up and say, hey, I want to upgrade, from this to this, and they'll give you free labor to change out the part for you. You'll probably have to pay for the shipping to get to them, but it is what it is, right? So they do have a really nice offering at $15.90. I know you say to yourself, I wonder how much I can build that for myself, right? So back to PC part picker. I did already kind of fill this out myself. So if I can go into my paid one, that's it right there. I already pulled it up. Look at that. Let's go back. That's my cheapo. Here's my Digital Storm pre-built comparison. So here's the same CPU. I chose a liquid cooler that looked very similar to theirs. If we kind of click this thing right there, yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is probably the same rebranded one, right? It looks pretty similar, but so I'll just add that in there, and that's what I did. This is the same, an Asus rocks with the same chipset in there. Put that into there. Added the memory for it, 2 sticks of memory. Added the storage, the exact same Western Digital Blue. I just chose a Hitachi because I couldn't find a Seagate right now. It looks like they're a little bit hard to find, but this is how much the Seagates usually run for. Here's the MSI RTX 2070. The picture on their site showed an MSI 2070, so I chose the cheapest MSI 2070 that I can find and put it in there. The Fractal Design Meshify is a very similar case design as the one that Digital Storm gives you with Lynx. It's got great airflow. It's one of the better ones for that. Here's the power supply. It's a 600 watt power supply, just like the ones that they gave us. Windows, of course, and some RGB fans like they're going to be giving us. Now I don't have the RGB strip here and what have you. So right now we're at close to $1,500, right? So Digital Storm is giving you a markup of about $79, but you're getting the warranty, you're getting the lifetime tech support, you're getting some internal lighting that I don't have on that side of the fence. So call it about, what is it? Maybe $80. So call it about $1,500 after all said and done with the internal lighting. You're getting for $80 the overclocking, or in essence the permanent turbo boost. It's not really overclocking, it's just making sure your system runs always at boost capability, which means your CPU's use is the most efficient and will use its full potential at all times, which it takes time to kind of tweak that if you don't know how to do it. So you're getting that for $80. You're getting the tech support for $80, the lifetime tech support. You're getting this USB drive with for the clean install. That's probably about worth $10 right there. You're getting your warranty. You're getting a really attention to detail system for cable management and optimization for airflow, those type of things. So it's a pretty good value proposition that you're paying only $80 for those things, right? And versus where it would have cost me $1,500 to do it myself. So again, not necessarily always cheaper to build yourself. Again, if I want to have more control, if I want to have the ability to tweak my system the way I want to tweak, then I would always lean toward building my system. But if I'm looking for convenience, if I'm looking for best bang for the buck, you really have to look at pre-builts, especially from pre-builts from manufacturers and providers such as Digital Storm, such as Alienware, that you feel that you can trust. There are other system integrators out there that I don't trust as much, but they're going to still be in the same price ballpark. They're going to be in that same area. So if they're going to be in the same ballpark trying to compete with these two guys, then you better be in the same caliber of quality and service as these two guys are. And if you're not, you better be cheaper. If you're not, then I'm not going to be interested in you. So those are the type of things that I look at. Overall, again, I can get a Digital Storm for $1,579, or I can build it myself for $1,500. It's a pretty compelling argument to kind of maybe give Digital Storm my money. So that's pretty much it. I wanted to kind of give you an overview of should I build or should I get a pre-built. Those are the type of decisions that I make when I'm kind of looking at the two things. I kind of make a decision on what kind of build I want to do myself, and then try to find a pre-built that might match that from manufacturers I trust. And if those two numbers are close, I might very well go toward the pre-built and forego my bias that I used to have too, that, oh, Rob, what are you doing with the dang pre-build? You could have built it yourself. Yeah, I know I could have built it myself, but then I got to deal with all the headache. And it's worth it, right, for me. But again, it's up to you. What are you going to be doing with the machine? I'm not planning on tinkering as much. I'm not planning on overclocking. I'm not planning on undervolting my CPU or overvolting my CPU to get a little more overclockability on that type of thing. I'm not going with a K chip. I don't want to deal with a lot of different type of tweaks anymore. If I did want to do that and I did want to continue with that, then the building of a system will look a little bit more appealing toward me. But it's all depending upon where you're at, what are you looking to do, what's the purpose of the machine, and where do you find joy in working with that machine. If you do find any joy in tinkering like that, if you don't, pre-builts get a little bit more appealing to you. If it does interest you, then building looks a little more interesting to you. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this little discussion about how do I decide if I want to build or if I want to go with a pre-built. What do I do in order to make that decision? Give you a couple of different people that I trust, being Alienware and Digital Storm. There's a couple other ones out there. I will probably link them in my description if you're interested in them, and we'll go from there. You all have a great day. Be good to one another. Peace.